All right, gang, we're gonna try something new today. And I thought I'd take you along on my goat grooming journey. So, goats need to be groomed pretty infrequently, I would say. You know, you need to trim their hooves. And most goats, you just need to check them over body condition wise, which is what I'm doing now. Just make sure that they're good in the spine, good in the legs, etc. And yeah, then you need to trim their hooves. And then most other goat breeds, that's it. You trim their hooves, you check them over, and you send them back in the pasture. With the mini silkies, we need to do some coat care. So it's going to be a little bit longer than normal, and it might be a little loud while I do hooves. So this is a tester run, and you'll need to let me know whether you like it, don't like it, want me to do more of this. We'll do an introduction to the goats. This is Jezebel. Jezebel is one of my older goats at this point. She's 8 now, and she's retired. No more breeding for her, but we have plenty of her line in our lineup, and I love her genetics, and I hope that they are always in our lineup. All right, hooves. They're not a huge fan of this, but it's just like cutting nails. It doesn't hurt. I use an electronic saw or a Dremel-ish type thing. It's called a Hoof Boss. And it might be a little loud, so we'll see how this goes. Well, I'm going to talk over it and see if it actually works. You'll notice that they don't love it, but it doesn't hurt them. Like I said, it's just like trimming nails. You got to get rid of all that overgrowth so that they can walk in a decent pattern and they don't have any problems with their hooves. I get all the dirt, all the junk out of it. Make sure that there's no boo-boos. Easy, easy. You gotta have patience when you're doing this. They are gonna pull their feet away. They are gonna try and kick a little bit. But if you have the patience and go slow, it gets done. It would actually be faster for me to do it with a trimmer, like a scissor trimmer. But I like the small incremental grinding because I get a chance to see the condition of their feet much better. I can get them much more symmetrical and flat. And that's it. It's not that dramatic. Again, don't know if this is working, if it's going to be awful, but we're going to try. If it's awful, skip this part. I do all 4 hooves at once, so you can just skip through it, and then I won't do that again. In fact, I probably won't do hoof trimming videos again because you don't need to listen to this. But if you like the grooming part, let me know, and we'll do more grooming. So a couple things. I probably should be wearing safety glasses, and I don't, and I'm terrible. Probably should be wearing gloves, and I don't. But, you know, after 12 years of owning goats, at some point you kind of get to the point that you get things done and it doesn't have any consequences. Yeah, until it does. But see, fairly quick, fairly simple. Like I said, it would probably be faster to do it with the trimmers, but it's easier on my hands to do it with this electric tool. And it's also better for me to be able to see what I'm looking at, see what they need, see if their hooves need any care beyond just the standard trim. So I prefer this. To be honest, though, most people prefer the trimmer. Whole lot less expensive, number one. And number two, definitely less noise. They're used to it. She's not happy right now, so we're just going to give her a minute to have that moment. I don't force them, but I also don't give in to them, right? Like, I can't continuously let her pull her leg away and put it down and pick it up, because we would do that game for an hour, hour and a half. Instead, I just kind of wait for her to realize that we're here, we're doing this, and she gives up fairly quickly. And if they pull while I'm working, I just stop. And we start over when they're done pulling. So I said you need patience. Like that. Just wait. We just wait. That's all. This does not hurt them in any way. It's just annoying. They don't want to be held. They don't want to be confined. I don't blame them. Jezebel's been through this so often. She knows the drill. She's just giving a little bit of a protest for fun and because she can. And sometimes I lose the leg and have to go get it again. That happens. Again, it's all about patience. All about working through it. When they know the drill and they've been through this before, they're a lot easier to handle. I find starting them young, making sure they're used to this. They're still going to fight, but not in the same way. And it's funny, you notice she didn't fight the first two hooves, but this one, boy, she is determined. All right, there we go. And another form of protest is she's pooping on the stand. That's pretty much a guarantee. Last hoof, kiddo. We're almost done. So, again, this is what hoof trimming looks like. Once it's done, it's over, the drama's over. Not a huge deal. And I mean, the protests are almost performative at this point. A little bit more on this one. And that's it. And the beauty of all of that is that we do not have any blood. We do not have any issues with hooves. I was able to see everything. No abscesses, no boo-boos. Everything's working as expected. And sorry, I was just checking the camera to make sure it was actually working as expected. And now we move on to the more fun stuff, grooming. So grooming for these guys is critical, right? You can get away with grooming them twice a year. Once in spring, which is now, and once in fall. But I recommend more frequent because it just makes it easier. What we have in spring is their undercoat. Their cashmere from winter needs to come out. That's this. That's all this big fluffy stuff. You've seen it in some of my videos on Maleficent, who's the black goat. It's coming off in waves. It takes a couple of brushings to get it all out. If you don't get it out with some brushing, it can mat up. It doesn't typically, it will typically shed out on its own pretty naturally, and they'll pull it off by rubbing against the fence and everything else. See, cashmere. And I just have a muck bucket down there to collect it, and actually it goes out for the birds. But you know, we try not to have them shed it out naturally by rubbing against fences, because that can damage the rest of their coat. And as show goats, I certainly don't want them to damage their coat. I personally prefer to groom them year round, meaning that every time I put them on the stand to trim their hooves, I brush them. It takes a little extra time, but for me, it's worth it, because those extra few minutes mean all the world in terms of not spending 3 and 4 hours at a single shot with a single goat. It's better for them. It's better for me. At any rate, so this is Jezebel. Jezebel was one of my very first keeper babies. This was back when we were just starting to breed and just really starting our herd and trying desperately to grow, but not at a pace that would take it beyond what we could handle. So to be fair, in the goat world, most goat owners have a lot of goats. And you have a lot of goats for a lot of reasons. They're herd animals. You want a lot of goats because they feel safe in numbers. You also want a lot of goats because you want to be able to breed the best of the best and make selections. All of that makes sense. But my purpose in starting this farm was to stay small, controllable, to treat my animals more as pets than commodities. And so even today, I have 14 adult goats. That's 12 years in, 14 adult goats. And that means that every goat I keep is particularly special, right? And is selected for a specific purpose and is done with a lot of thought. So I'm just running through my various brushing. There's a couple of little snags back here. That's why she's protesting right now. But as I step through the brushes, right, I kind of went through a surface brush, a brush that's going to pull out the start of the undercoat, and now a brush that's going to work through anything that's a little bit tangled and matted. And the back is always a little harder than the sides and the front. But that's it. All her knots are gone now. And this is why regular grooming is so important, because it really makes it so easy. At any rate, so what I was saying about keeping Jezebel, right? At this point, we were wanting to keep a baby, of course. It was one of our first breedings. Not the first, actually all of my first kids were sold as pets, because you don't know what your breeding population is going to produce. You want to see those animals grow up before you start to decide that you're going to keep their genetics in your herd. So all of my first babies were sold. These were second year, third year, might have even been third year babies. And when she came out, my God, she was just stunning, right? She just had it all going on. So while she had it all going on, I instantly decided we had to keep her. And that was the beginning, right? Our first keeper goat. That meant we were growing our herd beyond the buck that we had and the couple of does that we had purchased. And she was going to be our very first racing for home, officially bred goat. And as it turns out, I was pretty pleased with the selection and the pick. She gets a ton of compliments in the ring from the judges. She doesn't win, and she doesn't win for specific reasons, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but she gets specific attention. And I shouldn't say she doesn't win. She has 2 of her grand champion legs toward her master championship. She's not going to get her 3rd because we've stopped putting her in the ring. Like I said, she's retired. But the thing that the judges tell me about her, aside from the fact that she's just kind of stunning looking, is that she is almost perfectly conformed. Her conformation is spot on. Everything is put together where it should be. Her legs are straight where they should be, bent where they should be. Her top line is perfect. Her rump is sloped. She's a natural kidder. She has the ability to hold kids. She has the size to hold kids. And just no matter what we do with her, anytime we put her in a ring, that's the feedback that we get. Now, why doesn't she always win? Well, she has no bangs, number 1, and bangs are important in this breed. She has no cheek muffs or very little. That's also important in this breed. And her coat, while beautiful, silky, and long, is not floor length the way it should be. It was a little bit longer when she was younger. Things break off as you get older, but it is not the way it should be for perfection, right? And that's okay, because I was looking for conformation perspective first. My goats need to be healthy and able to do all the things that goats should do. They need to be conformed so that they can live nice long lives without arthritis and problems. I mean, and that is really the purpose of my breeding program. The coat is nice to have. The problem is with this breed, or it's not a problem, it's just what it is that the coat is the most important part of the standard for judging. I'm not a fan of that. I think that there's conformation is more important than coat, although the whole purpose of this breed is coat, so I get it. Lots and lots of cashmere on that first pass. So coat is first and foremost, right? So a judge is supposed to look at a goat, and if all things are equal with a goat, so we have 2 goats that have absolutely stunning coats, have bangs, have cheek muffs, have all the things they're supposed to have in order to have coat, only then do you use conformation to compare them. And to me, that's backwards, right? First, the goat should be conformed correctly, should be able to be a goat, live long, happy, healthy lives, kid naturally, not need intervention because they're not shaped correctly, their back isn't correct, not be broken down and sway backed. So I think conformation should be first and then coat. But when you think about the purpose, the intent of this breed, the intent of this breed was to create and have a breed with long, silky, flowing coats that was of a specific size. And if you don't focus on that, you end up, slowing down the progress of that particular trait being bred for. So sort of a catch-22, right? Do you get the breeders to really focus on coat and, breed the best coat to the best coat, and sometimes your conformation isn't perfect? Or do you get the breeders to focus on conformation and then coat, which means that you get nicely conformed goats, but their coats aren't as good and they don't progress in that trait as fast? I don't know. Like I said, I went with conformation over coat. So it took me a very long time to start to get goats that could place in a ring, that could actually make a difference and be beautiful in the ring as well as beautifully conformed. And Jezebel was really my first foray into that dynamic. So is she perfect? Absolutely not. No goat is. Is she pretty freaking close to perfect in terms of conformation? Yes. Is she perfect in terms of coat? Absolutely not. So she was my first keeper, one of my first keepers. And I was really excited to put her genetics in our herd. And of course, after you keep a baby, it's 2 years minimum before you breed them. So it was a long wait to breed her. And that gave me a long time to make sure I selected the right buck. Your buck is just as important as your doe. In fact, your buck is probably more important. But what we see here with her is really kind of my goal. And now with perfect conformation, I compare her with a buck that's going to add coat, right? The buck still needs to be conformed, or he could pass on, genetic defects and all sorts of other fun stuff that I don't want. But ultimately, I can look at a buck that has the ability to give her babies coat, and then look at what her babies look like and make some decisions from there. So that's kind of how it works. What you're seeing me spray her with is a leave-in conditioner / detangler. I do that every time I groom them. It does a couple of things, right? One, it keeps tangles also away, right? Which is what I want. I don't want to be standing here combing out a matted goat or a goat that has tangles. They don't like it. I don't like it. Too much work. So that's all I'm doing is I'm spraying her down with a little bit of that. I brush it through, and it keeps that coat in even better condition than just the brushing alone. And with that, her grooming session is done. And she'll go up on the stand once a month, once every 5-6 weeks. I do them in a rotation, and I do them in batches of 3. But no idea how long this video ended up being. I have no idea if you're going to like it. You have to let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the story of Jezebel.